Okay, so welcome everyone. It's 6 o'clock on Monday, the 24th, and this evening we are going to review the Equity Initiative and give ourselves not only a pat on the back, but also perhaps some things that need to be still done, a path forward. So just a way of assessing where we've been and where we want to go. With that, I'm going to share my screen so we can get started. I do have a slide presentation for us. Let me start at the very beginning. Okay. Can everyone see the slides? Okay. So it's the Way Forward 2023, the Equity Initiative. And I call this an annual report, although it's a little bit later than 1 year. I think our report was actually done in June of last year, but we've had a lot of activity up to and into October. So this is really our first opportunity to really give this presentation. So we're going to start with the land acknowledgement. We begin this time together with a land acknowledgement. Colonial Pennsylvania, the outline you see here, was first drawn in 1681, and it was drawn over original nation's land. We acknowledge the ownership of original Haudenosaunee Confederacy and the original indigenous peoples. We name the great nations of Pennsylvania, the Erie, the Iroquois, the Muncie, Delaware, Shawnee, and Ohio Valley tribes, the Susquehannock, and the Lenape. We honor all the original peoples and those in the past and those living among us today. And for this evening, what we're going to do is run through a series of slides, and you are welcome to add questions or comments into the chat. And I think we might wait towards the end to do Q&A just because there's a lot of content to cover, but we'll play that by ear. And if we need to, we'll take a little break and stop and ask questions. So want to cover our guidelines and everything that we do, because we talk about many times uncomfortable subjects. I just ask that everyone show respect for themselves and respect for others, respect for the group, and to listen because it's so much more important than speaking. Speak to the subject at hand. Try not to get lost in the weeds. Stay, to what we're trying to accomplish here. And of course, we understand we may feel discomfort whenever we experience new ideas and perspectives. Some of the ideas that we talk about tonight may be uncomfortable. So we practice self-care. And that means take care of yourself. If you need to step away, get a drink of water, if there's something that's concerning you that you would like to talk about beyond this, this presentation, just remember you can always contact me at equity@palwv.org. And we welcome your participation in everything Equity Initiative related. Recognize that not all problems can be solved now. We are actually in a transition phase here with the League of Women Voters and equity and inclusion, and we'll be talking about that much more. So it's just nice to know that we're on a path and that we, are all on this journey together. And in it, we look for common ground. We're all at different stages. So just to recognize that and to be comfortable with the fact that we are looking for common ground. And what will we address in tonight's session? So we're going to talk about what is the Equity Initiative and what we've accomplished. We're going to take a look at how the local leagues are doing. We have 33 local leagues across Pennsylvania. And so we're going to be looking at how those leagues are interacting with DEI, the DEI policy, and the work that they're doing in their league communities. we'll be looking at this through the lens of the DEI needs assessment results. This kind of gives us a practical view, a pragmatic view of some of the things that we've accomplished and some of the things that still need to be done. And then we'll be finally looking forward to 2023 DEI priorities. I know many of you have been asked to, share with me your thoughts on priorities. And if I'm not mentioning exact priorities that you had in mind, just know that I'm trying to keep our focus pretty open-ended so that we can leave room for flexibility, but also for focus, knowing that we are in transition. We can't solve everything right now, but hopefully the groundwork we lay this year will build on what we did last year and will lead to even more progress the following year. I'm going to send into the chat. Okay, I'm going to send into the chat a couple of resources right now. We're going in here to everyone. There we go. You see resources here. This is a link to all the resources that we'll cover this evening. They're all linked, so it's all just on one document. And there is another small document for transcriptioning and closed captioning. And I believe that I forgot to turn it on. And I apologize for that. I'm going to do that right now. Okay. All right, it is now enabled. So for anyone that would like to turn on closed captioning, I've enabled it here on my side, and you can make it live on your side so that you can see in words what we're talking about, as well as hearing it.
Jennifer, it's also been suggested that if you could put it on
the slide view. Yes,
yeah.
I will. I was enjoying it not on slide view, but I think it's easier for me to manage, but I think it's time to turn it on. You're absolutely right. Okay, there we go. All right, how are we looking now? That's slide view. And we're going on to the next slide. Oh, and one more thing at the end, open discussion for, just talking about what we'll be going over. I'm going to start with a message from our League of Women Voters Pennsylvania President, Sam Apgar. So this will be about a minute and a half, and she's going to speak. With any luck. Hold on a second. I think I need to do it.
Hi, everyone. I am so sorry I could not join for tonight's call. And thank you to Jen for inviting me to prepare a brief video message. I want to start off by just applauding all of the great work that's been done to date. It's really encouraging to see local leagues engage with DEI work in a meaningful way and to see us start to be willing and open to having uncomfortable conversations. But, we are at the start of this DEI journey, and I think we can all agree that there's still lots more work to do. So I'm sure they will talk about this more in the meeting, but there's 3 key areas that sort of came out of the needs assessment, including the fact that local leagues will benefit when the entire board of directors is involved in DEI work. Leagues are looking to leadership for specific DEI assets and policy templates. And there's a need to engage more people in this work and engage local leagues that haven't been involved to date. So I hope you have a wonderful discussion tonight. Thank you for everything that you've done so far, and have a great evening.
Great. All right. That was our Sam Apgar. And I was so appreciative that she took the time to share with us her thoughts. She's unable to join us this evening. So now we'll move on, and I'll go back to the slide view. Okay. Little things out of the way. So what is the League of Women Voters Equity Initiative? One of the things that I put into the chat was a listing of all the things, all the handouts. You'll find in that a little document that kind of explains in review, summarizes some of the things that we've done since we began, a little bit of history. But I wanted to share with you this, and I think I have to escape again, sorry. Here we go. I want to share with you the DEI policy. Now, everyone I think here is familiar with the League of Women Voters Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion policy. And that is a policy that was written in 2018 at the League of Women Voters US. It was adopted by the League of Women Voters Pennsylvania. And by its very doing, it's also part of what every local league has committed to do, because we're all part of League of Women Voters. But with that, we went ahead and wrote a little bit more of a look at what this policy might look like in practice. So if you go onto our website, you'll see that you can go and read down, and already we have the bare bones of some guidance for what DEI actually looks like. More than a piece of paper. It's about action, it's about intention, and about the impact that we can have when we really follow the League of Women Voters policy. So escape out of that. Back to this. Okay. So I urge you to take a look at that, and maybe even within your own leagues to sort of read down there and kind of consider how that might impact some of the work you're doing. So we implement the DEI policy, putting it into practice. We address challenges and opportunities, things that make us uncomfortable, things that don't seem to be working properly, and then finding ways that we can move forward the opportunities that are all around us. Supporting our members and local leagues, and of course, the League of Women Voters Pennsylvania themselves, with programs to strengthen capacity for DEI in both advocacy and organizational structure. We support equitable practices, policies, and we assess and guide the progress towards DEI goals. And basically that's what we're doing tonight, is we're going to put our money where our mouth is here and take a look at what we've actually done and what we still need to do. Okay, now I'm going to go back to slideshow again. Okay. So what has the League of Women Voters Initiative accomplished? I thought to myself, well, we fall into several categories. One of the things that we did first was to begin with some education and training. So we've held monthly webinars as often as we possibly can. We've done some webinars individually for local leagues and for groups. And we've also developed an equity team, which is a support group that meets once a month. And it's an opportunity for all the people who are working locally to share and to stay actually motivated to continue their own DEI learning and expansion, building partnerships and processes that are equitable and fair. We are also involved in outreach. So that's another key piece, like in addition to learning or getting an idea about what DEI is, we have to be able to put it into practice. And the big part of that is to be able to build meaningful partnerships, meaningful relationships in our communities, among diverse communities, communities of color, communities that have been underserved historically. And for some people, you know, we live in Pennsylvania in very many different kinds of demographics. And for each of the leagues, it's a matter of finding where the communities are that can benefit from, you know, developing a relationship with the league, and where the league can benefit from developing a relationship with them. And then the third little icon is a little clipboard, and that just sort of represents the fact that we are taking track of what we're doing. We're assessing what we're doing. We're not doing it in a vacuum. We hold ourselves accountable for what we're doing and checking back to make sure that it's actually effective. Oh, sorry. I went back the wrong way. Okay, there we go. And finally, I have a little scales, and that means that we are actually headed towards equity and headed towards justice. That is really the point at which we really all want to be. We want to live in a world that is just and fair. And we as an organization want to model that within our own organization, even in a world that isn't quite there yet. But we need to be able to lead in that area. We need to be able to transform ourselves to be just that. Okay. So here we are, we're at the DEI needs assessment for local leagues. And I wanted to just go over some of the basic criteria that we had to work with. So what we're going to do tonight is the first time we've ever been able to do this, is to actually compare our baseline survey of 2021 with our brand new survey from 2022. And I think that's really, I'm excited about that. I was excited to be able to actually see, how have we done? When we did the baseline survey in the beginning, we had nothing. That we started just sort of finding out where we were. And now we've been at this for about a year. And now it's time to see, of the programs we started, are they working? How have they worked? What haven't we addressed yet? So 2022 and 2021 both had 15 participants. That means 15 local leagues were participating out of a total of 33 Pennsylvania leagues. And you can see by that number, we're about just under 1/2 of the leagues that have participated. Right away, that's a number that is not something that we're thrilled about, but we are also very grateful for the consistency of the 15 or so leagues that continued to participate in the second year. Both of the results were based on the same questions. We didn't want to change the questions because otherwise, how would you be able to compare? So the 20 questions that we shared were the same questions we had before. They came in 4 categories: commitment, authorization, implementation, and accountability. They followed a format that came from League of Women Voters US. And so I like the way that the League of Women Voters US did this in terms of actually segmenting the questions, so we could take a look at the different components involved in enacting something as important and far-reaching as a DEI policy. And you can see that we obtained these results over a period of time. We didn't force everybody to do it all at the same time. We gave people plenty of opportunity to fill it out. Each league presented one set of answers. And for the most part, what happened was I left it up to the leagues as to how they wanted to do it. But for the most part, what leagues would do would be meet maybe a leadership team, go over the questions and kind of come to consensus about what the best answers would be. And that's what we did. And so I think that's a good explanation of how we approached it. Let's move on and take a look at this. This is the first bar graph. And it's just a simple question about the actions taken to support League of Women Voters. Let me get myself to the question. Okay. it says, what actions have been taken to support DEI in your league? And basically there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things at the bottom, 5 elements. I'll read them all out to you. To display the DEI policy on the website. That's a visible action in support of DEI. Online and print materials have reference to DEI and are written in such a way that they're very equitable and inclusive. The third one is updated the website and resources to, again, to reflect the DEI emphasis and to make the materials that are there inclusive and welcoming. And then education and learning sessions, and then none of the above. So when we look at this, comparing 2021 to 2022, I'm actually relatively encouraged. It's not like we're all at the end game, but you can see the difference in how many more people have actually displayed the DEI policy on their website. And you can see how many more leagues have actually taken a look at their online and print materials and made it look more welcoming. In other words, do we have people of color represented? How is the language? Is it, have we included Spanish, for example, if we have a Spanish contingent community in our league, surrounding our league? There's so many ways to interpret that, but you can see that people have begun to consider that and do that. Another thing that I would say is there's not one that I would say last year there was no one that was saying they've done education and learning sessions. This year there is some, and I can tell you honestly that these results are not really conclusive, in that many of these surveys were done before we got involved with some of the grant programs that we've done later on in the year. And I know for a fact that this would be different if we would take this survey today. So you can see that we're moving in the right direction. And I want to emphasize that. Another thing that I wanted to share with you out of this report was that there are many challenges that hinder the growth of and the development of DEI policy and materials and activities and advocacy in a local league. And I just wanted to read some of these to you. Our organization has too many other initiatives underway. It seems sometimes we're so busy, we don't have time for maybe some of the most reflective and difficult things to do. And I would just say that, that's maybe something we should work on, is to find a way to make this more important, because it will affect everything that we do in a positive way. We do not have the resources to begin this work. And I think you heard Sam Apgar mention this. This is something that we will need to address. We don't have enough people. This was just a couple of off-board members. Well, what's that basically saying is that maybe within the league, there's, not enough active people in order to get busy with another initiative. And our challenges are more related to execution, the availability of board members to participate in focused training and meeting people. People are zoomed out. This goes back to the very first one. And Zoom and virtual meetings make it challenging to have more intimate conversations. And so, these are some of the things that people have honestly shared with us. We have not yet done the background research and board discussion to be more effective in our DEI work. There's something that has stopped or sort of stalled that process there at that league for that response. And then diversity, there's very little racial diversity, so we have to consider other types of diversity that are more subtle. I thought that's very insightful. And I mentioned that briefly before, in that we have a very diverse state. Some of the counties that this might have been relating to really do not have a different kind of constituency than, say, Pittsburgh or Philadelphia or Berks County, for example. But we know that there's diversity everywhere. And I think what we all need to do is to learn about racial diversity, about the gender diversity, about diversity in ways of the way we move around the world, due to accessibility, different kinds of religions. There's so many different ways that we have diversity in the human condition, religion, our class system. So this group knew, I think they were well aware that they needed to consider other types of diversity. And that's exactly what we need to do, is we need to become educated. Well, just because we happen to live in a more homogeneous group, we think, is not an excuse to ignore diversity, to ignore inclusion, welcoming. Another point that I wanted to bring out based on some of the reactions that we got, comments, and this has a little bit more about some of the actions that have been taken and some of the things that have been accomplished. And I'll just read these to you as well. We've participated in public events that celebrate diversity. We have speakers scheduled to speak on DEI and have invited our community partners when these events are held. So important. We are distributing voter registration information at some local food banks. Sorry, that was my typo. And plan to hold voter registration drives on our local university campus. Initial meetings with 2 community partners, held registration event at a Pride celebration. We're getting into the community. We're getting out of that homogeneous kind of assumption of where the League of Women Voters belongs, and stepping into some new and exciting relationships within our communities. And we're engaging with a variety of organizations and have formed a voter engagement coalition. And what that represents is actually a chance to actually have been with organizations long enough that there is a common goal of voter engagement, something that everyone can partner with together. And that is, I think something that any of the leagues can aspire to do. It's a really wonderful way to sort of cement or solidify the partnerships that are being formed. Okay, so what I did here was, because this is a fairly long study, and I did share with you it was 20 questions. I picked one of the questions from each of the main categories to look at tonight. And I wanted to mention also to any of you that if you would like to see a more complete assessment of, or I should say the results of this assessment, we would be more than happy to share that with you. I was very pleased to have Sam Anthony at the League of Women Voters PA help me put these charts together. And so, we have more. Like I said, I just really wanted to focus on a few key ones, and then allow us to look more at our goals and why were these things the way they were. Okay, so the first category that we have is commitment to equity. And let me just, so you can see with this that there are 2 pie graphs. The one in red is the 2022 pie graph. The one in blue is the 2021. And on the 2022 side, the answer to, we have outlined specific actions to advance diversity and inclusion and equity, 33% of the respondents answered no. And in the yes category, 66.7% answered yes. So 66.7% of the people who responded in 2022 have already outlined specific actions to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion goals. Contrast that to the 2021 year, and you can see that those results are actually reversed. And back in 2021, there were really only 33% of the respondents that answered yes. So there are many things that have happened as a result of the year. And I think one of the things that's happened that's been helpful, I hope, is that, being able to be part of a support group, being able to talk about specific needs in leagues, and be able to find resources that can help advance those decisions that need to be made, have helped these leagues become more active and able to outline plans. And that's a good thing. And I want to celebrate that too. For the second category, authorization of equity, I chose this question. We have published non-discrimination policies which are understood and written into our bylaws. And in 2021, it was about 53.3% to 46.7%. And you can see in 2022, there's absolutely no change. So I think what this represents is the fact that we have basically stagnated in our work with developing policies and guidelines that can actually be followed and understood. I think that's pretty normal, considering the fact that the first year we spent primarily talking about what diversity, equity, inclusion really was, and getting people started, and getting a lot of the little programs started. They're not little in any way. I apologize for that, but the starting programs, maybe the first program that a league had done, around DEI. Now people have their feet wet, and now we need some guidance with policy, with ways to institutionalize DEI into our organization. And that would be things like hiring policies, vendor policies, ways in which we do nominations that are just and fair, moving away from a way of doing things in a very insular way that is opaque and maybe not seen by the outside world or even by the members of the organization, but to something that is transparent and well documented and recorded. When you think about how we assign leaders, how we nominate leaders, and how we go forward with our policies and programs. And let's see. Okay, I think I've covered that. Implementation. And at the end of this, we can talk about specific things as well with any questions that come up. Implementation. We have co-developed programs and outreach initiatives with communities of diverse backgrounds. And again, this is a little bit more than just finding out where diversity exists in a landscape, but to the point where we're actually working together to find ways that we can be of mutual benefit, where we can meet people where they are and find ways to develop meaningful initiatives with communities surrounding it within our counties. And here we have made some progress. So in the red pie chart, you can see that 60% of the respondents said, yes, we have developed co-developed programs we are working with communities of diverse backgrounds. And in 2021, that was 50%. So it is an improvement. Accountability. And again, this comes down to how do we measure the progress that we're making? Do we have clearly stated goals? And do we have assessment tools that we're actually using to measure progress in meeting those goals? And let's just take a look at this chart a little bit. The way this was, it was a 1 through 5 question, and 1 was considered inadequate and 5 was considered exemplary. And I have to applaud the people who responded to this and were honest, because this is the way that we make progress. So there are no wrong answers. In this one, number 1 was inadequate. And so you can see the red 22 responses are just above 50% or 5. And then the blue in 2021 was much higher. And let me just move. I'm having trouble seeing this myself. Okay. And when you get to the exemplary section, we're still working. You know, nobody's saying, hey, we've got this. We're working on it. And that to me is fine. I'd like to see more people who are working with goals and assessment tools. One of the things that we did do this year that we pushed, and I think perhaps we need to push this some more, is to work with the DEI lens tool. That is a tool that came through the League of Women Voters US, and we've kind of adapted it for use here in League of Women Voters Pennsylvania. And it's actually a tool that can be used for any kind of planning, anything that the League might want to undertake. It's a way of looking through our process, looking through the details of the program that we're starting or the event that we're planning, to make sure that we've included everyone, make sure that we've done things in a fair way. Those questions actually make us change the way that we traditionally do things, because the questions are insightful. They're demanding that we begin to use diverse vendors. They're demanding that we make sure that we have published things in languages that we need, etc. So these kinds of tools are things that will, I think, just need to be more integrated into the work that we do. Okay. But like I said, I am happy with the fact that we see progress, and that's really what this is all about. Okay, sorry, I'm having trouble moving everything around. I have a little tiny screen. Okay, the last part that I have here are comments, and I have 2 pages worth of comments. And I just sort of tried to pull out some of the generalized comments that were made by the League members who did this survey, and by the leagues. Equity is built into all we do, from League meetings to working with the community. We have to walk the walk and not just talk the talk. We strive to reach eligible voters in our community and provide them with the information they need to make informed choices. More is always needed: the energy to articulate, the forums to communicate, the ability to engage and motivate. So kind of inspiring. Targeting underrepresented groups for membership and action should be a goal of this group, and any strategies to put this into practice would be welcome. And that's really an ask, if you think about it. There's still a need for support. There's a need to share strategies. There's a need to research. There's a need to have an equity initiative so that we can come together to find the best strategies. And it's a good ask for the leadership at the board level too. We realize we are lacking in planning and specific DEI goals. So that's an honest response. And it's telling me, and I think all of us here tonight, that, we do need to continue this work. We need to provide resources to the leagues. Okay, and some more comments here. Financial resources continue to be an obstacle with DEI initiatives. The current League of Women Voters Pennsylvania grant is a welcome opportunity. So we have a range of leagues across the state. Some of them are very large, and when they are large and located in a more populated area, the resources that they have are greater. But that's not the same. That's not across the board. That's not the same across the board. And we, as a league, need to understand that. And I think we need to include all of our leagues. That was one of the things that I think the small grant program, which I think most of you are aware of, we did this year, I think was such a good thing. And I wasn't sure, how it would be taken, but thank goodness it was welcome, and it gave many of the leagues the jump start that they really needed to jump into some DEI initiatives of their own. One of the first actions was to produce, now this is another league, one of our first actions was to produce a DEI policy. We have scheduled meetings with diversity organizations to explore partnership opportunities. We intend to seek an equity grant to elevate and celebrate these partnerships. Again, first steps, first actions. And the next one, League of Women Voters Pennsylvania can provide examples of best practices and specific actions being taken by leagues across the state. And again, that's one of the functions of the equity team, because by sharing what's happening across the state with everyone, we're giving all the leagues a chance to elevate the work that they're doing. And on the board level, what we can do there, I think, is to bring in some of the expertise that is there, say in voter services, in governance, and et cetera, environment, and so on, to help build best practices everywhere and help it integrate it into your work at the local league, at the local area, at the local level. And let's see, finally, we would like assistance and guidance in developing a non-discrimination policies and ethical standards for receiving donations. Again, the need for policy templates. Very similar to if you think about how the DEI policy started, and now everyone's beginning to become integrated with it. Now we need to drill down and get more specific about how this gets implemented, even in ethical standards for receiving donations. That's an important question. Okay, let's see. We're doing really well here with the time. All right. So what I want to do with this is an image that I found on the League of Women Voters US site. And it just sort of struck me because it really is pared down to maybe the essence of what we are. As you can see, it says register to vote here. And the other sign says vote411.org. Election information's you need. So you can just imagine that this booth might be set up anywhere within your county, within the state of Pennsylvania. I just want us all to stop and pause for a moment just to reflect on who we are, where we have come from as a league, what our mission is, and the fact that we are all committed to this grassroots work. When we think about DEI, well, we can think about it as a vehicle to enhance the work we're doing and to allow it to go further. And so our mission is to empower voters and to protect democracy. And just everybody just pause just for a minute and then we'll move on. Just think it's important to reflect on why we're doing this. Okay. Now I want to talk about the priorities for diversity, equity, inclusion for 2023. And I say 2023, I really say 2023 because we're going to be in 2023 in January. But we'll be working on this through the end of June, and then we're going to have convention, and it'll be continuing on after convention. So think about it as, a full year, but you can also think about it in terms of smaller segments as well. So for our priorities, I had sent, and I thank everyone who's filled out a form that I sent them. I sent out repeated forms. I wanted to have as much input as possible and as much involvement as possible in the decision-making process to sort of figure out what's really up for us. What do we really need to do? So it kind of distilled out to this, and Sam Hapkar spoke of this too. So this is pretty much in line with what she said in the very beginning. So number one, what we want to do is expand the local league DEI engagement. In other words, expand the folks that are involved into the DEI work that we're doing right now. Reaching out to non-participating leagues who are non-participating for, I'm sure, a variety of reasons. And that's what we need to find out. We need to outreach, we need to listen, and we need to be able to make sure that they have the education and the resources they need to fully implement the League of Women Voters DEI policy. We need to be in connection with our own leagues in order to be connected to our communities. All right, so that's number one. Number two, to provide the needed resources and tools for understanding culture change and DEI. And that means shifting some of our priorities to ones that are more inclusive, and to understanding DEI from an awareness point of view, to knowledge about what it really means, to having the skills and tools to apply that knowledge, and finally to integrate it into the work that we do. So we need things like templates, language and accessibility resources. We need to be able to understand the demographics across Pennsylvania because it is very diverse. We need to provide mentoring programs to keep people engaged. And, this work can be very tough. It can be super rewarding, but we can run into roadblocks. So mentoring and ongoing support is really important for anything to be successful. And then to continue with our DEI learning, because that is part of the components that keep us moving forward. But this year I think we're beginning to look more towards action and providing resources. And finally, number three, to fully engage League of Women Voter leadership, both state and local, to commit, authorize, and guide the implementation of equitable and inclusive practices, and to transform any biased practices that exist. So we're going to include all of us as part of this solution, because that's the only way that we can really transform the parts that need to be transformed within our leagues. And we also want to engage with League of Women Voters US on both levels. On one level, because there's so many resources at the League of Women Voter US that we can use, but also because I think we should also be proud of the work we've done. And we have developed things. We have leagues who have shown exemplary leadership, and we need to let people know that on the grassroots level, there's a lot that we can share as well. So that's number 3. And that's it. I'm going to escape out of this and stop my share so we can see each other and say hello. And thank you for joining me. So let's see. I just want to open it up to any questions that you might want to ask. I know some of you maybe came in towards the end, and that's fine too. And if there's any parts of the slide that you want me to re-show, I'll be glad to do that as well, because I did run through it a little fast. I didn't know exactly how long we would take, and I wanted to make sure we had some time for questions. And I think with this, I am going to turn off the recording so we can just chat.